that moment could have broken me. And,
wow.
And the reason why I like to share that is because, it wasn't about being on a podium and saying, look at this, I did this. Is that if you really want it bad enough, like it's almost like think of that losing to make you better. Fighters that are listening to this can kind of respect that. I knew some of my fights that I would beat up the guy in 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Tony, welcome to the Health Talks podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you today.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on. Having grown up in the greater Ottawa area, you've really become a household name within the community. And I played competitive hockey, like especially within the hockey circles. You're definitely a big name. And for myself, as well as many of my peers, we know you as the man behind TG Athletics. I mean, the brand, it's legendary. But obviously you're a lot more than that. What I'm curious to know, but also for the audience, who is Tony Greco outside of the gym?
Well, Tony Greco is a guy that transforms bodies, uplifts spirits, and strengthens minds. It seems to be my life on an ongoing basis because I meet a lot of great people and they always ask me, hey, I got to come and see you for fitness. You got to help me do this. You got to help me do that. So I'm a constant kind of guy that loves to say, look, fitness is something that everybody can do, but transforming their bodies and uplifting their spirits is not what everybody can do. And I'm just that motivational kind of guy that just uplifts that spirit with everybody. So that's what Tony Greco is, especially in the real world.
Mm-hmm. And that mantra, you use it a lot.
Yeah.
Uplifting spirits, strengthening minds and bodies. What does that mantra exactly entail?
Well, I think it started with my background was martial arts.
Okay.
And I used to talk to individuals in an office, seeing what their goals were and what they wanted to accomplish and how they were going to get there. And everybody wants it, right? Everybody wants to succeed at everything they do. And what they don't realize is that behind that glory, there's all the guts and the hard stuff. Mm-hmm. So you have to transform the way you think, right? You have to change the way you think. And then you have to accept those thoughts that go into whatever's the outcome is. And then you got to accept that. So that transferring bodies, uplifting spirit, strengthening mind, it's kind of like an equation that works when you start the process of changing the way you think and feel. So what I do is I get you to understand that if you do that, you're going to change that. And your thoughts affect your human state. So what happens is the better you feel about yourself, the more energy you're going to have towards your goal, towards people, towards, in general, you're going to have like a better vibration of yourself. So that's why it's always, because people always complain, people go through obstacles, people are stressed out, people are mentally challenged, and that's an ongoing exercise. But what I like to do as an individual, and that's why that whole mantra came, is I like to change that. So it's like, hey, you know what, I'm having a shitty day. Well, if I can say, look, today's a great day to do something, maybe go for a walk or maybe listen to the new podcast, right? So it just changes your dynamics on the way you think and feel. And it's exercise, right? Just like doing bicep curls. It's not easy, but you're the one that only can change that. And my goal is to help you go through that obstacle that hinders your positive growth so you can succeed at it, whatever it is that you're trying to succeed.
Yeah, no, I really liked that changing the equation analogy, especially in the society that we live in today with social media. There's a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
So, staying positive, having you preaching what you do, it's definitely a big breath of fresh air. So I want to start from the beginning, right? So you grew up in an Italian household and came from pretty humble beginnings, I would say. Mm-hmm. Can you share what your upbringing was like and what were some of the core values and principles that your parents instilled in you from a very young age?
Yeah, being growing up in an Italian household, it was all just work and perseverance and resilience with having an attitude that distinguishes your altitude, because failure wasn't really an option in our family. And growing up, it wasn't easy, right? It was like You just have to do what has to be done. And I remember I came here from Italy, and you know, they put me into grade school, and I didn't even know how to, you know, speak a word of English.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
still learning how to speak English, right? And then what happened was they just brought me into grade school. Like, I've experienced some incredible moments in my life. Like, one of them I remember when I was 14, and I was going for lunch at Kentucky Fried Chicken, believe it or not, right? And then I saw this brown station wagon, because it was parked right in front of the store on Wellington Street. And I see like a glare of like people, and I turn around, and there's like 14 guys, and you know, you can imagine like how, like, you know, stressful it is. And these guys basically beat me up. Like, I was
Oh,
basically
wow.
bullied. But you know, I tell people the story because it's like, you know, that moment could have broken me, but instead it woke me up, and it just lit a fire, and just sparked the fire. It's like, oh wow, like, you know, like, this is fear. Because the fear thing, I know growing up as a child, and I think most kids out there that between the ages of 3 and 7, there's always fear that's instilled in them. And especially, you know, being Italian, it's like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. We hear our parents, don't do this, don't do that, be careful. And so it's always like you're guarding all the time. And you know, I remember that moment, just like when I turned around, I was like, whoa. And my dad said, look, if you fight, you know, and you come here, I'm going to give you more beating, kind of thing, right? It's like, whoa. So it was like, man, like, you had really no choice to survive. So, but that day on, like, you know, I talk about fear, and I think, and fear fuels me. You could use it to like break you or make you. And that's why, like, you're always going to have fear, but I love fear, because it's like, it just, it wakes me up, you know. And then what I did is I had to be honest with myself, because that moment was a moment where it's like, okay, wow, like, I got to do something with my life. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, you know, I'm going to take martial arts, because I wanted to defend myself. And then, you know, like, I wasn't the strongest guy, and, you know, not the most talented guy, but I did show up every day. And I knew that, you know, working every day would persevere and make me who I am today. So then that I received my black belt when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
And, you know, that's what kind of started a change in my life.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and what age was that?
So I was 17 when I got my black belt.
No, I mean when you got beaten up.
Oh,
By the,
14 years of age. I was
oh
14
wow.
years of age, and it was like, yeah, I still remember that moment. And I don't know why people always ask me, why did they beat you up? I guess I was the new kid on the block. Back then was, you know, like, now they talk about bullying people, right? But back then, I guess it was like, hey, here's the new kid on the block. Like, you know, and, you know, from that day on, I mean, obviously I didn't get beat up anymore, but I did, you know, made a decision with my life, and I took martial arts. And then like I said, I worked really hard. And then at 17, I received my black belt. And then in 1995, I won a gold medal for Canada.
Oh
And
wow.
and that was, and the reason why I like to share that is because, you know, it wasn't about being on a podium and saying, look at this, I did this, you know, gold medal, world champion. It was about believing that, you know, with a lot of pain, there comes a lot of pressure. And I'm just tying that into everything that people kind of occur. It's not like my story was just in fitness, but you could apply that whole kind of, you know, experience with everything. Like, nothing's going to be easy. Yeah. But I knew at the end, you know, with a little bit of pain, it'll fuel you, right? And it's like, you know, you could break through those obstacles again. And these are all experiences that I think, you know, people in life will go through over and over. And that's kind of what makes them who they are, right? Like, everybody's kind of got their story. I use my story to inspire people. Because that's the past, right? So now we try to create the future with those experiences that were occurred. And the good thing about the past is you can learn from it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially too in this generation with social media, everyone wants to look at, you know, the glory, what you achieved, but they don't really look at the journey, right? And yeah, as also too, like, I really admire how you motivate people, you know, because, you know, you could accomplish whatever, right? But if you're not motivating or helping the next generation, then, you know, how are you giving back, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the other thing I want to touch is too is like even with some of the younger generation coming up is that we've been brought up in kind of like a tough, really tough upbringing where there wasn't the attitude where it's like you can't do it. It's like you had to do it. You had no choice. But that created toughness. And I mean, I know becoming a fighter, it fueled me because it's like, you got to be tough to fight. Fighting's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Let's face it. But that toughness creates that resilience, that grit, that passion that when you go through an obstacle, it's going to make you go through it. That's the entrepreneur spirit. People always talk about a businessman. They say, what's the difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur? Well, in my experience, I think a businessman, will do a game plan and will do a business plan. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But an entrepreneur will just go through, whatever it takes because they just believe in it so much, that like nothing is going to stop you. You know what I mean? It's like, It's like you're going to go through whatever it takes. Like, and that's the difference in my opinion.
And what did your parents do when they come over?
So my dad got a job in construction was the easiest thing.
Yep.
And then my mom worked at an old age home. And I mean, they didn't have much education. I have 2 older sisters. And I was the guy that, because I had 2 older sisters than the boy. So I was the guy that had to be the winner kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember my dad was like, hey, like if you're not going to be a lawyer or a doctor, then, you're going to lose out in life. And that was the pressure of me having to succeed is like, geez. And then, but that's not what I want to be, right? And again, I mean, I've been very grateful and appreciative and everything that's happened in my life, like I wouldn't change it for the world. And so it was just the whole attitude of like you have this pressure of being someone that you don't want to be. Then you got to fulfill a passion that you want to be, and then you got to let the parents accept on who you really are.
Yeah.
And that's why my whole like I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I always talk about you got to know who you are and what you want. It's an easy question, but it's very tough to answer. Like I can walk around this university here today and I can ask every single one of these students, do you know who you really are and what you want? And they'll be like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, what do you want? I mean, you're going to school, you're taking it, but what do you really want? And a lot of them wouldn't be able to answer that because you have so much going on in your mind right now that you don't really have a clear vision of what you truly want. You think it's part of life where you have to go through a routine. You got to go to school. You got to get an education. You got to get a good job. Like it's kind of like it's an obstacle. It's like an illusion, right? But once you get older, you really truly know who you are and what you want. Like me, I didn't know who I was and what I wanted. Like I was supposed to be a doctor and a pharmacist and a lawyer, and it's like it was too much, right?
That cookie cutter path.
Yes.
And when you told your parents you wanted to go into the fitness industry, what was that conversation like?
I mean, they thought I was like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not gonna make any money, like because they don't understand, right? They weren't very well educated, and I have 2 kids of my own, and I always tell my kids now, you do what makes you happy. I try to provide as much knowledge as I can, all the stuff that wasn't given to me, and I don't regret it because I mean, obviously, being Italian, my parents,
it's a different
growing
mentality.
up poor, it's a different mentality, not really much education. And I remember when I went back to Italy, I wanted to trace those roots on why people thought like that, and it's because they've been brought up like that. So this is just. It's always the beginning of a new cycle. We pass this on to our kids, and they pass it on hopefully to their kids, and so on and so on. And that's why podcasts like this that we could share some tips will hopefully have an impact on people and maybe help them persevere. Because that's really why I like to share the progress with others. Is that if I've done that and I've transformed somebody's body after this and made them feel better, then I've done my job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really like that. And so everyone knows you as the personal trainer behind some of the biggest names in sports and country music. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. But once upon a time, and you alluded to this earlier, you were a kickboxing world champion.
Yeah.
Take us back to that chapter in your life. What was that whole world of mixed martial arts like, and what did those years of competition really teach you about yourself?
Yeah, that's good. Great question. Well, when I was 17, I I received my black belt. I remember I was a white belt because my background was karate, but I did karate, jiu-jitsu, judo, taekwondo, and I was a fanatic because I wanted to be the best. And part of it was that grit that I incurred when I was beat up, that I wanted to like I actually took martial arts to beat up people, but it actually taught me the opposite.
Did you go into martial arts after?
Yeah.
Right after that incident?
That's right.
Okay.
I made a decision. I'm like, I'm going to, go into martial arts. I'm going to kick the, what out of these guys, right? And then what happened was it just taught me what not to do. So those days would look like this. We'd practice every day, like 2.5 hour sessions. And then I started competing in regular tournaments. I remember my first tournament, I literally lost in 30 seconds. I got into the ring. I was like a white belt, first belt. And I was like, boom, 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 boom. And the fight was over. I was like, what? And that was it. I paid I think it was like $40 then, and I had the fight literally last like 30 seconds. So I never really started winning till I was a brown belt. And I was competing on a national circuit. So every month you'd have a certain tournament in different parts of the States. So, this month you'd be in, Atlanta, Georgia. Next month you'd be in Orlando, Florida. And it was the National Association of Sports Karate. And it was all the top fighters. And then, it was like tennis. You get a bye and then, you get into your category. So I never won a match until I got to my brown belt, which was one away from my black. So what happened was I started winning. I was seeded 4th in North America and as a black belt, and then I got selected to Team Canada, and then there was about 4 other guys that were part of the team, and then we were just, that mindset was like just, work and work and work and nonstop. Like you had to always feed the brain that you've done more than anybody else. And you know what? And I recommend that you always, and that's that self-discipline that you got to teach yourself, to know that you've done more than the other person. And I've experienced that because when I was in the ring, that fight was about 17 minutes long, and it was with a guy from Austria. And I remember I got kicked in the face, and it was like I took a spinning back kick. There was like blood coming out. Yeah. And then we went to the corner, and I said, there's no way I'm losing this fight. Like I just felt it inside, like a fire that was burning. It's like I knew that I trained harder than this guy. And then it just, like it lit the light, and then the next round was just like all mine, and then bang, the bell rang, and it was just like one of those Rocky fights,
Wow, literally out of a movie.
Yeah, no, it was like, I'll never forget that. I mean, I framed my gold medal. There's still some blood on the ribbon, and it just reminded me again that it's like, if you ever had a bad day and you had a lot of pain, just go and look at that and realize that pushing through pain will create a lot of progress. So use the pain as a progress to get to where you're at.
For context, so how many years of losing was that before you experienced success?
So that was like 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? I was getting so discouraged. Like, I mean, it just, because you had to fly to the destination and then stay in a hotel, and it'd be like, oh man. And then your thoughts, that's the other thing too. Like I remember thoughts, because, when you lose, it creates doubt. It drags you down all the time. It's not easy. That's what I'm saying. It's like, if I can give people a piece of advice, is that if you really want it bad enough, like it's almost like, think of that losing to make you better. Don't think of it as bringing you down. That's what I thought, right? Because I'm like, oh man. And then you go in with that doubt, and then you'd see your opponent, because they'd be pacing. I was like, is this going to be, a strong fight? Is going to last like 1 minute, 30 seconds? Because fighters that are listening to this can kind of respect that. I knew some of my fights that I would beat up the guy in 30 seconds. I'm like, I'm going to knock this guy out in 30 seconds, right? And then I'd be like, and I knew some fights, I'm like, whoa, this is going to be a tough one. Like you just feel it, you feel that energy of both, like, fighters. And so I said, fighting's not really for everybody, right? And I got out of it after, and again, that's
right after you won.
Yeah, well, right after I won, about a year later, I got off. I had like a lot of different options to do things, but I knew that number one, there wasn't a lot of money, and at the time it was where I had to start making some money. I mean, I couldn't live at home all the time, and I knew that eventually, because of the sport, it never ends up well. Like you look at all these great fighters that have suffered from Alzheimer's and just brain damage.
CTE,
So the cause and effect kind of weighed the situation. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to back off and just pursue my career. And that's why I went into fitness, because it wasn't about just winning the gold medal. It was about sharing that experience with other people, like that, you know, they say like the runner's high. Well, me, it was like, you know, the training high, because when you train, you feel good, right? And that's why it doesn't have to be, you know, join a gym and hire a trainer and all that kind of stuff. It just to incorporate some daily exercises in your life that's going to make you change the way you think and feel, because it creates that neurogenesis process in your brain where it reactivates brain cells to think and regrow and feel good. So that's what I wanted people to experience, is that high. Mm-hmm. So I shared a lot of the techniques with them through my fitness studios. You know, I would incorporate martial arts techniques. I'm like, you know, when you're kicking, pretend it's somebody's face you don't like. And when, you know, you're getting all these people that are kicking a pad and they're releasing their frustrations. It was a good way to like just let everything go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and talk a little bit about the importance of playing different sports, especially at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, sports is one of the best things for kids, because it teaches you balance, coordination, agility, but most important is the focus. You know, whatever sport you're playing, soccer, football, hockey, your brain has to get activated. And you know, through obviously attention span, recognition, through coordination. And all that comes together when you're playing sports, because your mind has to be in the game. Mm-hmm. You know, if a soccer ball's in the corner, you got to go chase it. You got to focus on, you know, going to your opponent and taking the ball away. Same with the puck in the corner. So, and it's a great team sport where people build together, and strength is in numbers. So you build a good core of values, because a lot of athletes, you know, I would say have a lot more beliefs and values than people that don't play any sports and really are not active, right? So it's just a great way to work together, you know, with a team.
Yeah, no, I've spoken to a lot of employers, and one of the things they'll ask in job interviews is if you played competitive sports growing up, just because of all the lessons they teach you. Did you play any other sports in high school?
Yeah, I did. My sport was actually football.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, so like I played football at a young age, and then you know, I went to high school and I was at the West East Senior Bowl, like Glebe Collegiate, and it's like, yeah, and it was great. I mean, I played since the age of 7. When I came from Italy, I got right. I had no idea what football was all about. And they're like, yeah, you just got to take the ball and run. And
do you think it was soccer?
Yeah, what's that?
Do you think it was soccer?
Yeah, I thought it was soccer. So it's like but I loved it. I mean, it was great. Had, you know, great experience, and then, you know, I transitioned to the martial arts, and then from there I went into fitness, and that's why I started, you know, sharing my passion, because I wasn't done then. I wanted people to feel this. So I started with, you know, Greco Lean and Fit. That was my first franchise. Mm-hmm. And it was just more like circuit style training. I was like the first actually in Canada to create the circuit style training. And people thought I was like, man, what's this guy doing, right? I started with like 8 stations, then 12 stations. And then, you know, we started with 1 location, and then grew to 2 locations, then 3, then 4, then 6, then 8. And finally we had 14 locations in Ottawa and 2 in Toronto. Okay. And then that's when I sold my brand, and then, you know, transitioned to TG Athletics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's take a deeper dive into that. So you went from world kickboxing champion to creating an empire in the fitness industry. What was that transition like from athlete to entrepreneur?
So I believed in I had such a passion after I won. Like I was like on a real high, I mean, for like a year. And I said, everybody needs this. They don't need to win. They need to experience what winning is all about. And through the form of fitness exercises, I said, not everybody wants to compete in martial arts. Not everybody, I mean, in martial arts, you get a belt to give you a reward, right? So you work hard, you get the next belt, the next belt, the next belt. Which is great, because it gives you accountability, it gives you the focus, the attention, the awareness, you know, and it's a self-fulfillment, because everybody wants to work hard, but you want to get some reward. But the fitness, you didn't have a belt. It was just physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because, you know, physically you look at yourself like, hey, I like the way I look. You know, spiritually, like I feel good. So it was almost like a language. And I said, this is unbelievable. And then we started with this circuit training, because I wanted everybody to experience that. That was the passion. So during these sessions, I remember that, let's say you were a student, you'd have to come in with a little notebook, and you would have to write down what you ate that day, the exercise you did, on top of what you were doing in class. So sometimes I'd call out people like, oh, sure, okay, well, look, you don't have your book. Oh, you know it all, right? Like, it was more like that kind
accountability.
of, yeah, accountability. And then I saw people transform. I was like, wow, like, people losing weight. I had like people call my front desk saying, I don't know what happened, but the behavior at work, like I don't know, whatever you're doing to this person, keep doing it. I was like, okay, like I think we're on to something here because the recipe is working.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's why I came with that mantra too. It's like, that's the transformation, the strength in the minds. And then I had people like break down in my office, like literally crying, like on what it's done. I still get people to this day that I walk around and I'm like, hey, I remember you taught me how to do it. I'm like, oh, this is great. And, so that's the reward. Like the language worked. And when we opened up those fitness locations, like the community and the culture that we created it was unbelievable. And that was what was a big feeling for me.
Yeah, and the thing is, people often think like, okay, I'm working out for an hour. This is to look good, but they don't realize how working out and fitness positively impacts every other aspect of their life.
Yes, it is. And it's like, that's why I say, like, to me, it's not fitness anymore. It's like almost like a medicine. Mm-hmm. Only because I've seen so many people come in through my studios, they were coming in with a kind of like a bad day, and then they left with having a good day, right? And they say, oh, I feel so much better now. I hear that all the time. How you feeling today? Oh, not so great. Then they do the workout, they leave, I feel great, And so again, it's transferring that language. There's a really good book out there. It's called Spark. It's by Dr. John Ratey.
Okay.
He's at the University of Harvard, and he wrote a book on it because what was happening is a lot of these students are writing all these tests throughout the year, these national state tests, and in science, math. I think like a lot of the Orient was scoring really high. And then there was two professors out of Chicago, Illinois, and they said, look, we're going to put these kids in the morning through a simple circuit-style training class where they'd be like jumping over hurdles, like doing some lunges, light weights. And the following year, they were scoring like third or first in math. One of the, like their grades were way, way up.
That's really
and they even have these brain breaks in Europe where it's like the teacher would be like, okay, everybody, push your chair back, get up, do some jumping jacks, and back again now, back at your desk. So what it does is in your brain, you have these cells that think and regrow. Mm-hmm. And I never even knew this. And, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'm really big with the mind. So what happens is the only way they get activated is through exercises. So let's say you were writing an exam and you were studying. Let's say before the exam, you did 10 minutes of jumping jacks and just like a little bit of intense workout. Now you'd be willing to learn, like your brain would be more in the game.
Yeah.
I do a very similar drill with my athletes before they actually start. So what I'll do is, and this is actually from my good friend out of the University of Minnesota, this guy Cal Dietz. Okay. So what happens is there'll be, let's say, two hula hoops on the ground about like 3-4 yards apart. And I'll have you go around it like a figure eight, staring at a dot on the wall. So what you have to do is it turns your brain on. It's like a switch. So it gets your brain activated now. Then I'll get you to take the same movement like an eight, and you'll rotate a tennis ball around your waist, but still focusing on the target. So now you got to work your hand-eye coordination. Then you could just do these equations in your mind. You could do mathematics in your mind, or you can have someone in front of you just hold up the fingers and you like doing the ball and counting the numbers. So now your coordination and your focus has to be in the game. I'm talking like 3-4 repetitions, and then you go to the event. So for me, it would be your workout. For you, it'd be like your test, right?
Yep.
And it's amazing because again, they did a lot of these studies of kids coming in and just kind of with their headphones and kind of not really focus on what it is that they were going to do. The minute they did this drill, bang! Like the room actually lit up. There was more light in the room.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's amazing. So stuff like that is really neat.
So before you go into work, like what's your routine in the morning?
So I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of meditation at night, and even in the morning. Like I like and meditation. I don't chant Om or anything like that. Like it just taking deep breathing now. I started to do that just to kind of like focus for like maybe like 3-4 like times repetitions where like you'll take a big deep breath for 4. And then you'll hold it for 4, and then you exhale for 4. Yep. And what it does is it brings your attention back to you that you're here, you're grateful, you're present, you're in the moment. And, you know, we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Because people always say, oh, I'm having a bad day. Well, no, you're not having a bad day, because the guy in the hospital on his last breath, he's having a bad day. You're still here, you're alive, you're present. And guess what? 250,000 people are on their last breath. And you're still here, you're not having a bad day. So it gets you to have awareness of being in the moment. Then what happens is, even writing things down, just a few things that you're trying to accomplish at night, subconsciously, they're stored. It's like they're in your database. And even though, you know, you don't accomplish them today, but it's still in the back of your mind. You're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about it. So when you're thinking about it, you're acting about it, and you're putting, you know, actions towards it, and you're a lot further than if you weren't doing that. So the journaling is really good. That's just simple daily disciplines. And then valuing that time. You know, my time is like, that's a big key thing now. Because a lot of people, like, they don't just think about it, right? But you can't buy time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
no, 100%.
Yeah. So those three values and beliefs are really important. I mean, family, health, time are the big three for me.
100%. Like, you can't be the best at your craft without these aspects being solid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, everybody sees what TG Athletics is now, but what was it like in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, it's always a challenge. Again, I mean, my second time around of building that business was, you know, a lot easier, because in life, you don't really make a lot of mistakes. I say they're lessons. You learn a lot of lessons. Some lessons cost you more than others, but you learn. And you learn what not to do. Are you ever going to be perfect? No, but you strive for consistencies. You know, the less lessons you need, well, the more perfection you're going to gain. So through my network of people, I decided that I was going to build this private studio and just share it to everybody that kind of like appreciated, you know, what the training strategies and everything that was going to be all about. So now I'm just very blessed and fortunate that I don't need to kind of chase the success. Like, it chases me in that sense. You know, it's like I'm not always looking for that sell. You know, it's like you got to be the best version of yourself and believe in what you do, and then those things will chase you.
With Greco Fitness, though, like, you sold the franchise, right? And then you started TG Athletics.
That's right.
But when you were first starting out Greco Fitness, is there any story that really sticks with you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I remember our first location, the enrollment wasn't the greatest. And, you know, my business partner, who his pride and joy was he had a Harley Davidson. I had my first car, and we were just on the verge of selling them, because we almost went bankrupt. Yeah, and it's like, shit, now what do we do, right? But we're like, look, we didn't come this far. Like, I mean, this is going to turn around. I know it is, right? You know, back in, brainstorm, and then we had a better month the next month and the next month. And that's why it's like, you can't, again, that's that fear again, right? We could have threw in the towel then, and that's it. I would not be sitting here today, right? But these are the things that I do believe that, you know, makes you stronger, you know, and everybody will experience it. It's never a smooth road. That was a big one. And then the other thing was, before we sold the brand, our lawyer said, look, we have an equity firm out of New York that's interested in buying your brand. And we went through like anticipation, anxiety, depression, I call it, you know, because it's like, you know, one day they're like, okay, we're going to have this sale, and, you know, you're excited because you're getting, you know, reward from a payday and all your hard work. And then the next day you're kind of like, oh, should we be really doing this? So there's all these things that go through your mind. It's like a roller coaster. And then there's like, oh, now they're going to do it. Now they're not, you know, they're looking back at it. It's just like, and you're trying to just set your life like at a whole different level, because you're almost there, right? So you're like almost on to the next step. So that took a lot of anxiety. Like that was a killer. 2.5 years it took to do the deal. I mean, we finally got it done. And then the sad and ending about that is that, and this is another thing that I want to share with people, is that because the passion and all that sweat equity, which we built and just gave it to people to feel, wasn't there. Because, you know, it was a big firm with a lot of money, and it was more like, you know, a corporate kind of feeling, right? Like there wasn't that culture. I mean, I remember we used to have the locations were like an espresso bar, because being a time we love espresso. It's like, hey, okay, I'll get your espresso. And it was kind of like a place where, you know, cheers, everybody knows your name. Yes, don't worry, go into class, I'll get your shake, don't worry. It was like a big family, big community.
Yeah, family environment.
Yeah, and then what happened was when we sold it, it was more of a cut and dry. And you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, I know that, it's always easy to blame COVID and stuff, but it's unfortunate. But the brand just died in like 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was the sad part, because to this day, we still get people in this city saying, hey, I remember I used to go to your location down on so-and-so. I'm like, oh, it's great. I loved it. There's nothing like it. And now a lot of people have tried to duplicate it. There's a lot of, fitness circuit styles that are doing it. But at the end of the day, I always say, often imitated, never duplicated, right?
Yeah, it's very oversaturated.
Way
market.
oversaturated, yeah. And I don't even train like that anymore. I don't even do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talk to me. How Carol Alt, I'm trying to remember the
Carrie Underwood?
Carrie Underwood.
Oh, yeah.
How did that come about?
So Mike Fisher, who played for the Ottawa Senators, I was training him.
Yep.
And great guy and amazing. He's definitely one of my favorite guys, because he just brought this certain energy in the room that you just felt it. You talk about vibration, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy that brought the vibration. And then, I guess one of his friends introduced him to Carrie, and I remember my wife saying, yeah, like Carrie Underwood. I'm like, yeah, like who is this? It's like, oh, she won American Idol, and okay, great. I'm not really a big country guy. So I remember, yeah, I was like, you're gonna train. I'm like, wow, that's gonna be cool, right? So I went into my Canada location, and here she was with like sweatpants and workout shoes. Like, hey, I'm Carrie. Like, she's such a pleasant human being. It's unbelievable. Like, she's just incredible. And you know what? And she's fit. Like, I was like, wow. Because I said, hey, Mike, like, can I like, push her a little bit? It's like, oh, no, she's fine. And it's like, wow. And here's this little girl who's like crushing weights and doing like a whole bunch of different, exercises that I thought were new to her, but she adopted so well. And, we just became really good friends. And, we had the honor of being at their wedding, and
Wow.
just great people. And so Carrie was amazing. I miss her so much, because she was a pleasure to work with. And I used to work with her, and Ashley Chichu was another good friend of mine who was with Jonathan Chichu, who played for the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I used to kind of like have some workouts together with them, because she wanted to work out, and they were just amazing people. Great energies, great soul. So that opened up a lot of doors for me as well too, because everybody loves Carrie Underwood, and everybody knows how her physique is so amazing, and her legs and all that kind of stuff, right? So.
Yeah, and you talked about how seriously she takes her fitness. It's not a surprise why she's so successful. In country music, right?
Yeah, and again, she's relentless. Like, everything she does well. She lives and breathes the health. I mean, I know she's like all about the organic. She's into like the vegetarian lifestyle, and it's like, she gets it. She's amazing. Amazing people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I find it really interesting now how you're training some of the best hockey players in the world, considering your background in mixed martial arts. And I think that's really interesting, because there's a big dichotomy between the two disciplines. How did that crossover happen, and what parallels do you see between the two?
So it happened because I started in football, and then I love hockey now. Like, I play hockey religiously because I love the game. Mm-hmm. And I remember my first client was Dan Boyle, and they're like, what's this martial arts guy going to be teaching me, right? But, the flexibility, the strength, the speed, the power is very similar, because our martial arts was very quick, which reflected, for instance, a quick burst on the ice, stop and start. So that energy system had to be the same. The flexibility, a lot of hockey players, they pull a lot of groin injuries. Well, in martial arts, we do a lot of stretching, the splits and, chambering the knee, hip mobility, which all goes towards, that first step in hockey, which they call now, like it's that first kick that you take off with. So there was a lot of similarities in the movements. And then what I did is, Claude Giroux, which I've had since he was 16 years old.
16. So you've seen
he's spent like
his journey through
his whole journey. And I love this kid. Talk about grit and having the heart of a lion. That's the guy right there. So, he introduced me to a guy by the name of Kyle Dietz at the University of Minnesota. Yep. And this guy, Dr. Ben Peterson, who actually stayed at my house in Ottawa, used to be with the Flyers organization, then went to the San Francisco 49ers as their fitness director. Okay. And now he's the fitness director for the Atlanta Hawks. Great guy, great mentor. and they wrote a book called Triphasic. So what happened was I've changed my whole training strategy once I started to train with these hockey players. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I had to experience it myself first to believe it.
Yep.
So I changed my training because I used to do a lot of periodization training and, your regular general strength stuff that everybody does. So then the cool thing about this training is that it's only a concept. And what I mean by that is like every dynamic movement has 3 different tempos. So you have like the eccentric, where let's say you have a football and you recoil the ball, where you go slow down. Then you have the isometric, where you're resisting, it's a short cycle. And then you have the concentric. So what a bright idea. So what they did at the university level is they trained these tempos in 2-week spans.
Okay.
And what that does is, without getting too technical into the science, but the first 2 weeks when you're elongating that muscle, it sounds gross, but you're tearing the heck out of it and you're rebuilding tissue. So when you're joining that actin, myosin head, it becomes a thicker tissue. Then 2 weeks after that, when you're doing these compound lifts, like let's just take a simple squat that everybody knows how to do. Well, when you hold it in that down position, that's the iso. That's where you're holding that resistance of that force. So you're not really strengthening the muscle, but you're strengthening the joints and the tendons at that specific low angle. Then because you could resist more, then in the concentric, you could push more. So it's kind of like, think of someone pushing me back on this chair and I go right back and then I get up and I push them back. But imagine if someone came full force and I stopped them this quick, I didn't go back, how fast I could push them. So I was like, wow, this kind of makes a lot of sense. It's cool. So then you try it and you test it and it's like, wow. So I took all the data and I applied it to my training, and that's how I created TG Athletics. So I train 3 different tempos to generate maximum force of power. Whether you're an athlete or someone just trying to be in the best shape ever, what I'm telling you is that if you don't spend 2 weeks in a block working those 3 contraction of that muscle, then you're limiting yourself onto what your maximum potential is. If it's strength, if it's speed, if it's power. And people are like, well, how do you know that? Well, because we've tested it. So let's say you came to me and you're like, listen, I do 500 pounds in a deadlift for 1 rep. I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Good job. What have you been doing? Oh, I've been training. Well, if you did 500, I could bet you in 2 weeks, I'll get you to 550 because you haven't gone through, that tempo of really stressing that muscle out to its maximum potential, And that's something that I had to accept. I'm like, this is crazy. So it's all about the stress adaptation. It's almost like practicing a technique. You're like, oh my God, you're going to get hurt, but you got to adapt to it, right? And I always tell my players, it's like, you're a defenseman who's 6'4", 220 pounds, and I'm a forward that's 5'11", 180 pounds. Well, I go into the boards. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, you're too big. Don't hit me. You better learn how to absorb that, right? That shot of him coming at you. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I love the concept. It's called triphasic training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that makes perfect sense. Why TG Athletics has become a factory for producing first round NHL draft picks like Brandt Clarke, Jack Quinn, and most recently Dean Letourneau.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
And that's tough. That's you got to keep that up. I've had 4 back-to-backs and I've had like 2nd, 3rd rounds. And that's another thing that, makes me feel really good with my team is like, look, guys, this is Ottawa. Like, you're producing first round picks. This is the NHL. It's a pretty good league.
Yeah.
You're not talking like, this is the best in the world. So this is a real reward of the training and the mindset, because I think that's a lot of our contribution too. It's not just the physical, it's the mental aspect with these guys as well.
I was just about to ask, you just explained how you're training your athletes physically, but what are some of the practices you make them go through to train the mental side as well? Yeah,
so a lot of them is we do a lot of benchmark testing.
Okay.
And, they believe, but believing is not enough. You got to feel it, where it's like, what? A lot of them want to push heavy weights. And it's great because when they start the season, we'll do like a 2-week prep phase where we're working a lot of ankles and your big toes and graining and, calves, Achilles, all the stuff that people like never work. But that's your base. Yep. That's your base. And then what we'll do is we'll start with the compound lifts, and they'll feel strong, but by the end of the 8 weeks, let's say you're doing a hex bar with 315. Well, you're doing probably like 480, but twice as fast as you were doing it when you first started.
Yeah.
So it's the results, it's the believing that creates that mental toughness, because they see it. Like seeing is believing.
Confidence.
Speed.
Yeah.
Understand and trusting the process. That is the key. Because I mean, you could be the best trainer in the world, but if people aren't getting results, these athletes are making millions of dollars. Like they got to move on, right? So it's all about the results, and that mental toughness is, I follow up on these guys. I make them believe that you can do it. Like if you see my phone, it's full of texts with these guys before and after games, because I care. So they say I'm not just a fitness coach. I want them to do well, and I think they feel it. So we feel off each other, right? We feed off of that. Like I'm texting these guys after every game, say, hey, that was a good game. I watched the game. That was awesome. You got the assist. You got the goal. And they love that because they see they care. So my energy kind of feeds off of theirs, right? And an attraction. That's an attraction that creates that mental toughness.
Yeah, and it's also a genuine relationship you're building with them.
Right.
So, we have a lot of students at the university in kinesiology and who are aspiring fitness trainers, but also too athletes who are looking to get to the next level. What advice would you give to both groups of individuals?
Well, I would tell them that's great that they're doing that. That's a great base, but you always want to further your knowledge. Like you got to keep learning all the time. Expand your horizons. Acknowledge, accept, and adjust. Create your own kind of uniqueness. Be different, and you have to have, number one, you have to have the vision. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by it is you need to have a very, very clear vision on what it is that you want to do. Like if you're, taking human kinetics, it's like, what are you going to do with that now? Okay, have that clear vision, and then have that passion that goes with it, and then that state of mind. It has to be there, because you're might go through some muscles where you might not like what you're doing all of a sudden. Maybe a year in, you're like, oh man, and you spend 4 or 5 years in university, but you have to be able to adjust, because there's going to be good and bad days. So have those 3 elements, and then keep learning. And I always say you got to be like as sharp as a tack and enthusiastic as hell in your craft. If you're not that person, then you're not going to be the leader of the pack. And if you're not the leader of the pack, the view never changes, because there's a lot of good trainers out there. There's a lot of good football players, a lot of good hockey players. So what makes them who they are? And you ask a lot of them, and I'm only sharing this with people because I want them to succeed, is that they're willing to do things that the other guys are not willing to do.
Yeah.
Like, practice harder, learn more. I mean, I didn't have to go and learn this stuff. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I could have continued doing what I'm doing, but I love it. That was my passion, and I still want to learn. Like I learn every year. I just finished an RPR course just about 3 weeks ago. I didn't have to do that, but it's like this is cool, And now I want to take a neuroscience course just to become a neuroscience life coach, because I love the brain aspect of it. Like I wrote my book, and Strong Mind, Lean Bodies. These are life successes that kind of what we talked about on our podcast. And, these are, again, other experiences that share that with people, so they can, create the behaviors and produce emotions, so they store that. And whenever they come through these different obstacles in life, they're able to get through it.
Yeah, no. And after you sold the Greco Fitness franchise, you could have easily retired, but it's that intrinsic motivation inside of you, right? You're not chasing the money, and
no,
you're not chasing the recognition, right?
No.
You just love what you do and love your craft, and you're every single day in and day out, you're trying to be the very best at it. I think that's very admirable.
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, and I think, people should use that model, because again, knowing what I know now, right? At the beginning, you're chasing all the time, but it's like, chase what you love. Those things will come for you. People see that all the time. I even steer people away from my facility. I said, look, if this isn't for you and you're not ready to make the commitment, you're not coachable, don't do this, because there's no point, you're sharing a value that, as you believe, and it's happened, it's been tested, and it works. So really, I'm just here to guide you through it, but you got to be coachable. So right now, it's like, if people aren't coachable, I just tell them, maybe this isn't for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe take another route. But
I love that you're open and honest with them too.
Well, you have to be, because you're at a point where it's like you said, it doesn't matter anymore. Now for me, it's like, did they make the team? Did they lose that weight? Are you feeling better? It bothers me if someone doesn't succeed. Like, I get pissed, because it's like, why isn't this happening? We've done everything we could. We motivated, we worked. So it bothers me. That's the pride, right? That's the pride. And those are the memories and what people remember you for, right? And that's why I know right now, like when I walk around the city, I still see some of my old martial arts students like, man, you taught me a lot. Like, those are the moments that people share, because, you'll cherish that forever, right? Everything else is just kind of like a fairy tale, right? So.
Yeah. So, as decorated and accomplished as you are, you're also a published author.
Right.
Strong Mind, Lean Body. Tell us a little bit about the book, what it's about, and what was the whole motivation behind writing it?
So the whole motivation behind the book was that everybody's got a story. I've listened to a lot of successful speakers and their journey, and it inspired me. And then that inspiration only lasted so long, because that adrenaline kind of fades when you leave 2-3 days after, the conference or whatever it is that you're going to. So I wrote the book because it's like, this is my story, this is my experience. And I made it that when you read it, it's kind of related to you. It's like, oh, I remember I went through this situation too, right? And, oh, this is how I got out of it. So it just keeps you positive and motivated to go through obstacles that hinder your positive growth. And with the right discipline, you know that you could accomplish that, right? And then you share that with everybody. And that was my progress, was to be the best person I can be at my craft. And then I knew it took a lot of discipline, and I knew I went through a lot of obstacles. So I believe that with every discipline, you get through it. And then I shared it with others, and that's the progress that I'm sharing with other people. So like I said, if reading the book can help you and transform you in any way of your life, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
And it's really easy reading. I mean, you'll see my life experiences. There's stuff with the gold medal, and I use different victories to share. Not, hey, I won and I'm this. And it's like, this is how this victory worked on it. Like the gold medal was one of them, pushing through pain and progress. That was a big one. The fear, about getting beat up. It's like, okay, use that fear to fuel you and let that fire, so that way you can ignite. Being honest with yourself. What is it that you really want? How do you want to change in your life? And then you got the best one, which is the transformation phase, which is now. And that's why, I enjoy, talking, sharing the progress with people, and continue to be doing this stuff with other people.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. I think you're only extending your reach, helping even more people, right? Tony, this has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't thank you enough for your time, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure. And hopefully everybody will change the way they think and feel after this podcast.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a lot of people will definitely benefit it.
Good.
For everyone who listened to this episode, if you enjoyed it, be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Health Talks Pod. Also, too, stay tuned. We're doing a little giveaway on our story. And before we let everyone go, big shout out to our sponsors at Guru Energy. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.